It's time once again for the Spearsy Spin with your host, the young and semi-talented Mike Spears.
Hi folks, and welcome to special edition of the Spearsy Spin. Now, we were going to talk about the economy, we're going to talk about police lives matter and the like, but late this afternoon we had just what appears to be an avalanche of concern over WikiLeaks releasing about 1,000 documents apparently from NSA and CIA records. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right into this. And the first thing we want to talk about is the wiretapping of Michael Flynn. And the reason why that becomes so important now is that originally everyone was told by NSA, CIA, and FBI that there's no record of any wiretap at the Trump establishment there. However, we now know that Michael Flynn's telephone call was exactly tapped. So if that's the case, who did it, who ordered it, and we'll be taking a look at that and see where that leads. But one of the things that we are now learning about late this afternoon is that the bank at Trump Tower apparently had been hacked, and it shows that it's been pinged. And supposedly that was done by a Russian operative, I guess is what they're saying. Now, this, of course, coming out of WikiLeaks. NSA, CIA appears to still be spying on many Americans. That was supposed to stop, as you know, and President Obama was supposed to make sure that the Attorney General addressed that some time ago. But now, here we are, 2017, March 8th. And now from Vault 7 from WikiLeaks, we have many things coming up. First of all, we have the WikiLeaks people are making public about 1,000 documents of the CIA, and we know that experts have been reviewing these documents since they were released by WikiLeaks. And what we understand from the experts now is they appear to be legitimate. Now, within that, several judicial watchdog groups are now suing the CIA and the Department of Justice for the records relating to the leaked info on Michael Flynn. In other words, they want to know, how did you get this wiretap? When did you get it? Who ordered it? And also Trump's national security advisor, with regard to media sources, is trying to there's a better word here than what they used, but they're trying to align this action along with the former Obama administration. We now know that two separate media sources from the BBC are now giving information, and they are stating that two separate sources within the FBI have requested warrants from the FISA court to observe and to tap phones that, of course, these would be of Trump acquaintances. Now, the BBC has reported that a FISA court granted a warrant for the U.S. intelligence agency to intercept electronic records from two Russian banks. The order purportedly involved three of President-elect Trump's associates. Meanwhile, back in July of 2016, Trump had joked during a meeting with voters about the whole Russian vote tampering issue, suggesting maybe that Russia could find the 30,000 missing emails that Hillary Clinton had lost. But now, since all that happened, the Clintons and the left-wing media say that this was a code from Trump to go ahead and do whatever they could to make Hillary look bad and thus lose the election. Well, look, if Trump and his associates were talking to the Russians all the time, why would you need to give a code to do that when you just say, hey, listen, by the way, check out that Hillary Clinton a little bit more, will you? Meanwhile, in October of 2016, WikiLeaks has released emails of Clinton's campaign top guy, which is John Podesta. He was the campaign chair for Hillary Clinton. And the Clinton folks blamed Trump and the Russians, as you know, for, again, her loss of the election, which doesn't make sense because she actually had more votes than Trump. So now we have pundits suggesting that all of this has become a silent coup, if you will, to try to eradicate President Trump. Well, so far we know that as far as hacking a computer server at Trump Tower with a suspected link to Russia, of course nothing's been found. But the wiretaps apparently continued. Now, the Obama administration most likely was using this is what is alleged, rather. It's alleged that the Obama administration most likely was using the surveillance powers of the federal intelligence agencies to monitor the Trump campaign. Now, this is according to an unnamed source. And throughout this thing, speaking of unnamed sources and anonymous sources, how much of this does anybody even know? Because everything so far seems to be anonymous. But then in January 2017, President Obama has expanded NSA sharing that allows certain intelligence gatherings on private citizens. Now, along with that gathering, though, they are allowed to share whatever they find out, whether it's proven, disproven, whether it's speculative information or whatever, with other agencies. And the problem with that is that the more agencies that get this type of information, the more it appears to be leaked. The FBI now says that it had intercepted a call in 2016 between Michael Flynn and Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak. Now, how do you record a phone call when there's no wiretap? And how do you even talk about a wiretap if it never took place? So here is where everything is starting to fall apart. In the meantime, the New York Times in February of 2017, this year, claimed that there were extensive Russian contacts between Russia and the Trump campaign. But when pushed, the Times started walking back that story and eventually admitting that there was no evidence. It was just, again, anonymous sources. And meanwhile, the Washington Post claimed that Attorney General Jeff Sessions had two meetings with the Soviets. Now, these two meetings were quickly dispelled. Nothing there whatsoever. So, as we continue on, we see, if you hear paper rattling, it's because I have been taking notes all afternoon as this thing just seems to have taken off. As we take a look, the Associated Press is now saying that the Russian intelligence folks had contact with members of the Trump campaign, according to unknown anonymous sources. Well, if they're unknown and they're anonymous, it could be anybody, right? We don't know, or it could be nobody. Meanwhile, the FBI continues to investigate Russia's attempts to sway the U.S. election, and also the House Intelligence Committee is doing its own investigation. Now, you have the House Intelligence Committee doing an investigation, the FBI is doing an investigation, the Senate's doing an investigation, the Congress is doing an investigation, the CIA is doing an investigation, the NSA is doing their own investigation. Who the hell is running who's running this show over there? I mean, everybody's investigating each other. Shouldn't we maybe just get everybody together and say, okay, this is what we know, good. Now, yes it is, no it's not, but that's it. And get back to running the United States. I mean, come on. And, just when you thought that we had something figured out with all these investigations, now we hear the Justice Department is investigating FBI Director Comey to see what his actions were all about during the election. As you know, he had released information concerning Hillary Clinton during the campaign, and supposedly her issues. There's so many issues, I won't even go into it. Everybody knows what those issues are. And then we go on to talk once again about the tapped call of Michael Flynn, which was leaked to the Washington Post. Now, there's a real problem with this being leaked to the Washington Post here, and here's why. If the FBI, the NSA, CIA, or even the Justice Department, if they are doing any type of investigation or they are collecting evidence against an individual or a group, if they leak that to any member of the press, it's a felony. It's a felony. They're not allowed to do that. So going forward with this mess, and that's all you can say is, what a mess, when eventually, and they will, the Congress and the Senate especially, will eventually get to the bottom of all this, just like we did with Watergate, just like we did with the Clinton issue there. We'll eventually get there, and once we get there, someone or a group of someones may very well be facing some very serious felonies. And we have to do that because we have to stop this. We have to get to the bottom of all this. And the Washington Post, of course, isn't going to give up any information until the Congress, probably, I would imagine, would be the body to handle this, subpoenas the Washington Post. Now, we also want to know, why did President Obama tell Loretta Lynch to change the way the NSA could share unsupported investigative information about different people? And this information can now be shared with other agencies, even though it hasn't been processed, it hasn't been proven, hasn't been disproven, or the information vetted. And the folks out there are now saying, these are the people in the know, that it appears as though President Obama may have done that in an effort to allow leaks about Mr. Trump and his campaign associates to appear in a very bad light. So that would be sabotaging the incoming administration. Now, we have to look at that, and we have to look at the agenda that would be associated with that. And the agenda would point out to me that, we hear all this talk about President Trump and being narcissistic or whatever. But as we flip back over the last 8 years under the Obama administration, countless individuals, and some with mental health backgrounds, had pointed out that President Obama may fit the criteria to be narcissistic. Well, whether he is or he isn't, that's not even the case. But what I would suggest is that President Obama would appear to be somewhat vindictive. As far as I know, he's the only president that ever ended a press conference where he kicked the door open as he left the press conference. So, I mean, and what is that? That's nothing, really. But yet, when we add that up and we look at what happened with Mr. Rosen from Fox News in 2013, when then, the Attorney General had him, had him under surveillance and had gotten a hold of a court order from FISA to tap his phones. And we know this because the President of the United States at the time had talked about it, and also he had ordered the Attorney General to make sure he put into place programs, rules, and regulations that would stop this in the future.
I've been told that Black women aren't supposed to support the Second Amendment. I've been told I shouldn't want to be able to protect myself. I shouldn't teach my fellow students about their rights, and I shouldn't speak my mind. Thank God I didn't listen. To all of those who have called me a sellout, an Uncle Tom, or a pawn for someone else, here's what should scare you. I never changed my beliefs. I woke up and realized that you don't represent them. You don't speak for me, and you don't think for me. I am not the victim you need me to be. And I'm talking to more women like me every single day. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I am freedom's safest place.
I have a message from Mike Spears at the Spearsy Spin. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for a quality show, I can tell you I have no class. But what I do have is a very particular set of radio skills. These skills make this show a favorite for people like you. If you subscribe now, that will be the end of it. If you don't, I will look for you. I will find you. And I will bug you until you subscribe.
I guess it didn't work, huh? Now, we also are finding out here that the director of the National Intelligence Committees, apparently, who's Mr. Clapper, by the way, found no evidence at all of President Trump or anyone within the Trump campaign colluding with the Russians. Nothing there. We also know that there are different senators who have been involved in a different type of investigation, have also said the same thing. And again, as we see everything leaking out to the press, whoever's leaking this, I mean, I'm assuming there's more than one person. These are felonies, because you cannot, especially within the government establishment, especially if you're a government law enforcement official, you cannot leak unsubstantiated anything. And even if it is substantiated, it must go through protocol, number one, and there is a due process that the FBI has to follow especially, as does the Justice Department. The CIA is a bit more lenient, but not in a position of releasing information. The NSA, they kind of go by their own rules, and there's a reason for that, is because it's national security. However, with that said, it would be very, very doubtful that anyone in the NSA would be leaking anything to anyone. So my suspicion would be that when they find out who or whom's have been leaking information, I think you're going to find it's probably the Department of Justice or someone within the FBI. Because the CIA, they typically aren't going to get involved on such a close level with an incoming president and to try to disgrace this president. Okay, they can do it, and certainly there are programs the CIA has, and we've operated in different countries doing just these things because sometimes it's just what you have to do. So there you go. And the NSA, they don't have time for this stuff. I mean, to them, this is like 10th grade garbage going on, so they don't have time. So we know now pretty much there's no evidence of President Trump being in bed with Russia, so to speak, or wedding on the bed in Russia. So now we have to look at the Washington Post and the New York Times, and here's why. They continually attack President Trump, as you know. And, once the Post and the Times come out with all these ludicrous stories, then we find that, the mainstream media picks this up and they run with the story. And so a lot of folks, if they don't know, they're reading about stories about President Trump in the Times and in the Post, and then they're hearing about it on MSNBC and ABC and CBS, where there's no vetting. I mean, we know this. This is an established fact. There's no vetting. So that's when the life of these stories, they kind of takes on its own life, and we've always said that, misnomers and lies can travel halfway around the world before the truth can get its shoes on. So I want to know, while everybody is investigating each other, and why are we allowing the government to basically sit idle while everyone's involved in these investigations? I mean, I think we gotta bring this to a close at some point, Now, WikiLeaks has released about 1,000 documents, and we know the experts have looked at it, and the experts are saying that, yes, this appears to be legitimate. It's going to take some time for this to get filtered out, and we know that, it was Ed Snowden, I believe, who was working for a contractor for the CIA, I believe it was, had all sorts of information that was leaked out and made many of us citizens go, ooh, that's pretty scary, I bet you. And there was some really wild things in there. But now the thing that is not setting well with me, and it probably isn't going to set well with you, is this. If folks like WikiLeaks can get into government files, in this case the CIA, who else can get in there? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a computer person. God knows that. But there are people who are very good with computers. They must be, because they keep hacking everything. I mean, get the credit card numbers by the millions, and now they're hacking the government. They hacked the Pentagon. So if they're doing that, and we're assuming that WikiLeaks is, I guess a good type of hacker, if there are good hackers, I don't know. But what about if Russia actually was wanting to hack? What about China, North Korea, Pakistan? What about Iraq, Iran? We could go on and on and on. So I think the big picture here should be, let's seal up the leaks, number one. Arrest whoever needs to be arrested. I mean, this is serious. You can't leak this stuff. It's a felony. And on top of that, maybe it's time to think about a different way of storing computerized information. Again, I'm not a computer person. But here's another way to look at it. If your mom used to bake pies and set them on the windowsill in the spring and summer to cool, and if somebody kept coming along and eating 5 or 6 slices of the pie or the cake, I mean, after a while, ain't Mom gonna say, well, I probably won't store my pies there anymore, I'll bet you, because somebody keeps taking them.
I'm a mom, and just like millions of other women, that's why I own guns. We're responsible, we're law-abiding, and we're everything that makes America strong. Every day, we're willing to use a firearm to defend our families. But the media will never tell those stories. If a mom puts a gun to the face of a home-invading thug and makes him run for his life, the story gets buried. But if she's unarmed and murdered, the cameras will be at the scene before the police. It's time for moms like me to speak out. We are the majority. We demand the freedom to defend our families, and we challenge the media to tell the truth about our rights. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
Hello, this is Captain Jack Sparrow. See, you've already met this dastardly scoundrel who calls himself Mike Spears. That would mean that you're listening to the Spearsy Spin. Right. By my reckoning, if you give a thumbs up and subscribe, this would make you one of the crew. Savvy?
Doesn't that make sense? It does to me. And this entire thing today for me has been very, very awkward, very, very weird. I mean, I have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11 different sources of information piping into me left and right, and I'm trying to make sense of it. And I mean, literally so much of it is coming in. I couldn't even draft it into a story, where I could go back and kind of just breeze through it. I ended up taking just cliff notes, basically, and that's why, this sounds, probably sounds a little unprofessional, which probably is. But I can't help that. We had to change everything we were doing to do this, because we all agreed that this needs to get out there. So where are we going to go from here? Well, obviously we're going to want to see what the WikiLeaks documents actually are. We're going to want to know what is going to happen in the government. And there's already talk, as I'm even sitting here, I have monitor in front of me, a large monitor, and I'm able to see different things. And already I see folks are putting up messages about possibly President Obama being held accountable for this. I mean, that's what's going on. It's volatile right now. It's very volatile. And many people are talking about this. I mean, in my own circles, which, to be very honest with you, the majority of people in my circles are Republican conservative. Duh, that was hard to figure. But I also have other folks there, friends. I have friends that are liberals. Yeah, I have liberal friends that I go shooting with. And yes, liberals do have guns. But it's amazing how so much of this is transitioning entirely in a different way. As we said a couple days ago on one of the shows, that we see independents now, because of all this, becoming Trump supporters. I've seen just in my social circles, Democrats stepping back away from the party because they do not want to be part of that. That's not who they are. That's not what they do. So they're stepping back. And some of them are just no party affiliation. Others have become Trump supporters. So with all this stuff going on, and we talk about Berkeley because, Berkeley appears to be kind of the stew pot of political animosities. I made that up myself. And I think we're going to really be staring really heavily into Berkeley, because I think that's where a lot of give and take is going to take place when this all calms down, and it's not going to calm down for a while. As a matter of fact, it's heating up more and more and more. So that's where we're at. This was our special report. If it seemed choppy, I apologize, because we had everything set to roll with the economy, and at the last minute, no, we're going to go with this. So, forgive me. But we'll plan on seeing you tomorrow, where we'll have more information, and hopefully we can get back to things that we need and want to talk about. Remember, there's only one world, and we all have to live in it. So let's see if we can do that. Thanks, everybody. See ya.